We are going to be attempting to hack the game Among Us using Cheat Engine 7.1. Now, one of the easiest ways to kind of start and begin doing this is first load up Among Us in Cheat Engine using the process list finder, where you can select Among Us here. And we're going to run into free play in Among Us. Now, this will just kind of be a sandbox mode where we can run around and try different things and learn, and then we can apply this to our multiplayer games. Now, one of the key things in Among Us is becoming an imposter. Now, we can equate that becoming an imposter and becoming a crewmate is the difference between a 0 and a 1. So if we're a crewmate, we're a 0. If we're an imposter, we are a 1. So one of the first things you want to do is search for being a crewmate, so 0. Now you want to select the value type here. We can select it as all if we don't know what value type we're working with, but we're pretty certain that it's a byte. A lot of times it could be 4 bytes, but for this certain one we are going to select byte. Now if you don't receive the result that you're looking for, you can always select all. So we're going to run our first scan. This is going to take a bit of time. Now we see that there's 154 million results of 0 in the game. Now we're going to try and whittle that down to find which one of the zeros is being a crewmate. So the best way to do that is to select 1 in the value type and become an imposter, and we can select next scan. So this will take a little bit of time, but it's basically going to find the value that was 0 and is now 1 in memory. So we're down to 50,000. That's a pretty big difference already. So we're going to keep doing that. We're going to keep trying to whittle down our result. Again, we'll take a bit of time. Let's keep on lowering this. Now, we see that there's all these values that are changing. And we know that our value is 0 and will stay 0. So we can keep pressing next scan and whittle down these results a little bit further. Let's see if we can get under 200. Staying about above 200. So we're going to keep going. 153. We'll go again. Alright, so we have 147 addresses, and the more that we click this, it's not going down a whole lot. So one of the best ways we can do is run around in the game and see which values actually change. So you see how we're running around and these values are changing. We can still lower this more, some more maybe. 104, 98. We're in the double digits now. It's pretty good. Let's see if we can change this again. 19. Whew. Alright, so we know it's in one of these. 19. Select again. 15. So we have 15 addresses. Select a little bit more. Best way to kind of lower this even more is to actually change the speed of the game from 1 to 0.1. And we can do that by using this speed hack. Now, whenever we go ahead, let's go ahead and change this to 0, select imposter, and 14. Let's see if we can do it again. See how it actually slows the game speed down, which is exactly what we're looking for. 13. Okay, so we know it's in one of these 13, and we're pretty certain by that because every time we change the value, it just the listing has stayed the same. We'll run around a little bit more. Doesn't seem to be. Okay, so we know it's in one of these 13. Most likely all of these are a part of being an imposter. Lower that even more. In fact, that kill thing here, I had a kill cooldown, and the moment that it hit 0, a few of the values actually changed, which is good. We lowered it even more. Alright, so we know that it's one of these, and we can kind of guess that it's one of these because all of these are very, very close in memory. We see it's all 1A, 4A. All of them are, except for these last 3. So we know it's most likely one of these. So let's go ahead and pull this value down. Let's change it to 0. So it wasn't that one. Let's go ahead and get rid of it. See if it's this one. Wasn't that one either. So you see it's all these 1A, 4A, and it didn't change anything. So maybe if we do this 1B, we change this to 0. Not that one either. Alright, so it was this 25A8 That was the one we were looking for. So we can go ahead and get rid of these. So now we have the kill options. We don't seem to have sabotage. And we do now once we change that value to 1. Alright, so we change this value back to 0. See how we still have that kill? So this was only one of the many that it could be. And all these will stay the same. So let's actually go back and switch to Imposter again. Let's try and run through a few more of these. We want to find the one that has everything to do with being an imposter. Not that one. Not that one. And we just got to go through all of these because we know one of them is being an imposter. Seems like this one is it. Alright. So it was actually one of the ones we originally closed out of because we knew it had something to do with the kill option. It wasn't the total one, but it actually was. Let's go ahead and get rid of all of these. We know it's this one that we're working with. If we change this value of 0 to 0, and we go back, yeah. So this was the kind of the total imposter one. So this value right here is the one that has everything to do. So if you change this to 0 or change this to 1, all the features of being an imposter come true. Okay, so we know that this is the value that we're searching for, but we don't know if this value will stay the same once we leave the game. So if we were to leave the game and come back to it, this address might not have the value of being an imposter anymore. So we need to find out what points to this value and what actually makes it change value from 1 to 0. So the best thing to do is to go ahead and run a pointer to see what points to this address. So let's go ahead and run a pointer map. Okay, so we've run our pointer map. Now we can go ahead and see where this pointer map is in its address book. Now one thing we can do to kind of narrow down where this is and what points to it is actually to see what writes to this address. So if we check to see what writes to this address, and we go ahead and select from imposter to not being imposter, we'll see that there are two essentially parts that are instructions that are writing to this address. So one of them being switching to imposter, one of them being a crewmate. And we know that it's doing an offset of 28. So anytime that it becomes an imposter, it moves 28. If it becomes a crewmate, it moves 28. So we know that we have an offset of 28 here. That'll be helpful in the future. Okay, so if we go ahead and run the pointer scan, we can go ahead and select 28, and we can use that pointer map go ahead and do pointer for imposter. Now we're going to see a lot of values here. See, there's a lot of values, and there's no way we're going to determine which one of these is actually the one that is the main pointer. So one thing we can do is actually we can compare two different pointer maps to lower this even further. And to do that is actually we're going to do this all over again. So we know that this is imposter, and we'll label it 1. And we're actually going to leave the game. We're going to do it all over again. Now we do. So this value is now not an imposter value. If we were to change this to 1, we would no longer become imposter, because this is a new instance, essentially. And we're going to try and see, we're going to compare that old instance with this new instance and see which values stayed the same, what pointers stayed the same. And we can actually add that to our address list, and we can make that into our hack. So we're going to go to customize again. We're going to run through this really quickly. First scan, it's a byte. We know there's going to be 150 million. Let's go again. This will take some time once again. And you'll essentially just keep doing this over and over again until you get just a few pointers. Now, the bigger the game is, the more pointers you're going to have and the more times you're going to do this. But we are only going to do it twice because we know that the value is going to stay the same between the two if there are any values, any pointers that are the same. Okay, let's keep going. Run through this as quick as possible. Quick. Let's keep going. Switch to imposter again. 79. Taking a bit more time, but that's okay. Now we'll go ahead and switch back. Alright, this will be a perfect example to use the speed hack. So apply the speed hack, switch to imposter. Oh. 12, there we go. So I know it's in one of these 12, once again, similar to before how we had about 10, 15. Let's go to switch back. Now we know that the last time this hit 0, it was 3 values that had actually changed. There we go. So it cannot be this one. Alright, first try. There we go. So we have 2 values, 2 instances. So in this instance, this was the one that changes imposter, but in the other one, in the previous instance, this was the one that changed to imposter. See how they're 2 different addresses because they were switched? So we're actually going to run a second, we're going to do the exact same thing. We're going to generate a pointer map. We're going to name this pointer map 2. So this will be the second pointer map. Alright, so we have a pointer map there. We'll label this imposter 2. Now let's go ahead and run that pointer scan, and we know that these will all stay the same. We'll have the offset of 28, which we found before, and we're going to compare with the second one. So this was the one we are currently working with, and we're going to compare it with pointer map 1, and we're going to select the address of the previous value, so which is this one, and we're going to go ahead and run it, and we'll do pointer for imposter 1. So it's going to compare these two, and all of these are ones that have stayed the same between the 2 pointers, and we'll see how far we drop down from the previous one, and we know that all of these affect the imposter. Now, in Among Us, all of the base address is in the game assembly. Now, if you don't know this, you can essentially see which values are 0 and have the base value of 28, and we know that those are game assemblies. So, we can select any of these that are in game assembly, and it should affect or it should stay the same between our imposters. So let's go ahead and select any of these. Let's increase this. So all these ones that are question marks are not going to be it. We know it has to point to 0 and the offset needs to be 28. I typically like to grab ones that have the least amount of offsets. So if we go ahead and change this to offset 0 and sort it by that, let's go ahead and go to 28 and see if there are any. Yeah, these all look great. Let's select one of these. Okay, so essentially if we were to change this pointer value to 1, then we are now the imposter. So now we know that this is imposter hack. Now if we were to leave this game, come back, it changes this value to 0. Change it back to 1, and we're again the imposter. So we know that this hack works. And essentially, we can change these values and it wouldn't actually do anything, but we're not going to. We're going to go ahead and remove these two. Let's go ahead and leave the game and see if we can do this in an online match. Alright. This is the true test to see if this works in a multiplayer game. Seems like that one won't start. Alright, we're at 10. Hopefully they start. There we go. Alright, so we are a crewmate, and we don't want to be a crewmate. Being a crewmate is no fun. So we go ahead and change this value to 1, and all of a sudden we are an imposter. And we can go ahead and click through all of these. We can kill people. Let's see if we can kill somebody. There we go. I feel like she definitely should have seen me there. That's okay, and we can always just switch right back out of being an imposter. No longer the imposter. Let's change back to imposter here. It looks like it killed me before I could even become an imposter. But I can actually see who was the other imposter here. And that is how you essentially can always be an imposter in Among Us.